a banking consultant, Dr. Richmond Itiain. Doc, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. I hope you are too.
I'm doing exceptionally well.
Okay.
This morning.
Great. So we just had excerpts of the finance minister's address in relation to how Ghana's economy is performing. Largely, he says that we have made significant progress. We are witnessing growth. We're seeing some stability as well. And with regard to growth, he says that we have returned to the pre-COVID era. Listening to him, do you share in the same confidence and satisfaction with where we are at the moment?
Well, it's very unfortunate where we have found ourselves. And I like his statement about, well, I want to quote him. When he was speaking, he said, in nominal terms, the economy has grown from 50-something to 70-something. And I'm very grateful that he has said that. Because normally, when people talk, they talk nominally. The real growth is when you take inflation out of your growth. So I was very happy. She sound very cautious and a good economist. That's the nominal growth. The real growth is that you can't grow when you have inflation hitting at 20%. Your currency has depreciated from January to today close to 40%. So for that one, I just want to commend him for choosing his words very, very economically. Now the recovery. When we talk about recovery, which sectors of the economy are recovering? The most critical side of the economy in Ghana is the agri sector. So if you're talking about recovery, if you're basing your recovery on people importing goods and coming into Ghana, dumping it and going, that for me, it is not. You should be very specific, because the areas where we are suffering is the food inflation. And when he was speaking, at least, he never made mention of that. And if you are growing any economy, you can ask all the economists in the world. Countries like Ghana, the most critical or key component of our growth should be the agri sector. How is food? How is maize? And don't forget, now, we are about to leave the harvest season and be entering into the planting season, which starts from January, because I am a son of a farmer. At that time, food inflation was going to go up. That is why the governor, in his sense, saying that I'm going to maintain my policy rate, because the trajectory is that inflation is going to go up. And when people talk about that, I also want to take their minds. There are two countries who had this problem. Sri Lanka had a 70% inflation during the COVID and Ghana 54. To tell you the truth today, Sri Lanka has come into deflation from 70% to minus 1.8% inflation, because they made sure that the sectors of the economy, like the agri and export, were given the needed attention. If economy is going to turn around and it's not coming from a developed country like Ghana, developing, I won't call it a developed or emerging economy, it's underdeveloped economy, and you cannot contain your food, which is a chunk of your basket of inflation calculation, you are in a serious trouble. We might have come down to 54, but we have got stagnated at 22%. It's not going to come down today. Let me make it clear, because we are moving into lean season of food. And he said a very good thing, the debt. Look, you see, when you talk about the debt,
So, Doc, I'll come to the debts in a bit, but staying on inflation a while longer. I mean, he talks about how we have outperformed the inflation targets we set for ourselves. Is that not commendable?
We have, now, sorry to cut it short. If you check the governor's inflation levels, even the last statement he made before he suspended it, he said we were going to go to between 15%. But we didn't reach there. So what goal did you? The minister himself, I think about 2 months ago, He said we were going to go below 15%. He said 15%. And the governor was very critical. He said 18%. We haven't reached there. So you haven't achieved your inflation targeting growth. That one, let me make it categorically. I am quoting the governor and the minister himself. He said 18. The governor said 18. You said 15. Then we are 22 up. So what have you achieved as far as setting your goal? You haven't achieved that inflation targeting growth. That one, let him get it clear. Because he said, Dr. Amin said, I'll quote him, he said we will be about 15%. And the governor came in and said, oh, it's about 18. Two of them, they haven't reached. Now we are on 22. And I can assure you, December, as we go, we're going to go to 24, 25, because we haven't achieved. So there is nothing that we should clap for ourselves. And what he also didn't say is that when you have currency depreciation, it dovetails into your depreciation, dovetails into your inflation. There is a correlation between your currency depreciation and inflation. There is an empirical evidence by economists all over the world. When you have a serious currency depreciation, you then have inflation on the trajectory. We haven't stopped the currency hasn't stopped. We are massaging it, fine. But how long can we sustain it? You can't. Because immediately we finish Christmas, the demand for foreign currency comes in. And then the CD will find his own level. And we are very lucky we build a buffer. I like the way he said it, build buffer. Because, you see, all money that came from the World Bank and the IMF, let me get it clear to you guys. Until the next restructure, the Eurobond sign-off, the accounts were kept in escrow. So after we have done the PAL and DISCO, we have to go and pay. Some of them we have to pay even from 2023 and 2024. So the reserve that you have built is not an export. It is not cocoa. It is not gold. It is not remittances. It is not non-traditional. It is just by you not being able to apply the loans that you took from World Bank or IMF. That is why you have built your reserves. Okay. And when you started paying, you see the real color of your reserves.
And is the stability we're seeing, is it as a result of the reserves? What exactly is causing
stability?
I'm talking about the CD depreciation. We have seen that the CD is gaining strength against the major foreign currencies in the past few weeks. What can we attribute to that?
What can attribute it is that after the World Bank, like they've just brought in 300 million. What we are doing is that we want to present a face to the world that our currency is gaining ground. But the reality is that it is supply and demand. And what you're doing is not sustainable. Dr. Kwachi, I have said it. It is not sustainable because it is supply and demand. And if you go and get some loans and come and use it to massage it, you're just only doing a dress up. Let us see the reality beyond December, beyond February, and see how the CD is going to fare. So for me, the stability you're talking about, I call it a dress up. They've been dressed up to make sure that maybe elections are coming so that people will say the currency. Because the very statement people used has come back to haunt them. The fundamentals, if the thing which is wrong, your fundamentals are wrong. It has come to hit people. And people now try to say it is not there. But let me tell you, your remittance, your imports and export, it doesn't correlate. Imports are so high and the exports are too low, and that determines the value of your currency.
And so you're saying that what we are witnessing at the moment is just temporal, and we are most likely going to see the CD lose its value perhaps after the elections or even in the next year, early part of it.
Yeah, now maybe you may disagree with me, but the question is that the supply and demand, this is how foreign exchange is determined. You don't have the supply, but the demand is there. I mean, the people who we took loans, they gave us a relief, a bit of time. We didn't pay. Come 2026, 2027, you're going to pay like nobody's business. Have you actually put the monies that you took into productive capacity? Rice expansion, tomatoes, onions. Oh, come on. Maize. It is only when you did that we say you have put your investment in production. Unfortunately, we borrow to consume. If you borrow to consume and to tell us all these things and things, for me, those of us who read into it, it is nothing to us, because the journey ahead for the next 20, 15 years is not going to be easy.
Speaking of the journey ahead, the finance minister, he's very optimistic. He talks about how the country's economy is performing well. We've gotten the third review approved by the IMF. He compared it to the same period around this time in 2016, and he says we are doing well. He also says that for those who lost money during this process, he's assuring them that from in the next year or two, they will have their monies back.
Now, thank you very much. That statement he made, if he hadn't made it, it would have been better for the pensioners and those who lost their money.
Why?
What Dr. Amin has forgotten is that even if you're going to pay the 19% return, you're not paying 9% structure over 13, 14 years. Have he considered time value of money? If he has done a real economics, he should ask you time value of money. If he does the time value of money, and you realize that money today is not the money next year, so what money are they going to get? Even if you have money in 2022 and the same money in 2020, they are not the same. So you are going to get what I would call a nominal money, not a real money. So when he said it, I would have preferred him not talking about it, because you're taking somebody's money, and then you're telling him, because you are in position to tell him that I won't pay you, I'm going to pay you 2026, and I'm telling you you're going to be well off. Who said that? When your inflation was in higher trajectory, your currency depreciation is running like you say more. Chineke, Odema, what is he telling us? That you see, we should show remorsefulness and repentance. Because if he had been in pension, like me, she wouldn't make such statements. It gets me provoked. Seriously, very angry. You take my money, destroy it, and come and tell me that you'll be well off in 2026. What about 2026? I'm not there. What is that? What is that? You see, when we are making statements, at least we should be circumspect and respect people who have suffered. You see, people have suffered so much. I know people who have died. And if you're paying tribute and you're going to say the man should wake up from his grave to come and take the money, when that money that you took, in what productive capacity did you put it? You didn't go into agric. You didn't expand the agric base. The economy that is growing, which sectors? I want to challenge you. When they come to speak, they should break down to tell us which sectors are turning around. If it's service industry, fine. But we are talking about the move the economy, agric. If you don't tell me the figures in agric, the turn around, and I don't know what you're talking about. So now, that payment of money, the least talk about it, the better. Because it gets some of us hungry.
Now, you have talked about how tough from 2025, 2026, 27, 28 is going to be. Listening to the finance minister, do you get that sense that they have an appreciation of what we have ahead of us?
I think we don't appreciate the problem, the enormity of our problems with our tax system. As recent as June 2024, I'm quoting verbatim, by the World Bank Economic Update, June 2024, here a statement. One statement will let you go off. The primary impediment of the low tax GDP ratio is due to the large informal side, low compliance, weak administration of taxes, and then what hits me hard, the widespread exemptions. And the widespread exemption, according to World Bank, is equivalent to 3%. So if your tax GDP ratio is 13 and you knocked at 3%, if not that, you'll be going to 16. We are around 13. So I would prefer him, when it comes, he should look at these tax areas. Because The problem is that because it will hit the high echelon and those in top brackets, they always keep mute about it. And if you don't take care, we will face the same disease that forced us to go to IMF. When we couldn't meet our physical obligations, we went to borrow. And if you don't look at your tax policy architecture, like the South Africans, the Rwandans, the Kenyans have done, not the Nigerians. The Nigerians are 10%. Ghana is about 12.8. So look at what even Africa is 16.8. Look at those countries, the minimal tax exemption, so that the tax system will go on. And another area that I want to share with you is that it says that one area that is so frightening, Ghana tax system says suboptimal compliance. Number 2, obsolete technology infrastructure. Number 3, lack of robust tax education and support mechanism. This is by the World Bank, not me. So the minister, I would urge him that either he hasn't read the document, he should go and read the document. Because they profess that initially they said production, not taxes. But unfortunately, there is no production, there is taxes. And we must make sure that the tax systems, those who are supposed to pay, and the IMF report, let me also say this one before I go now. It said the high net worth people and the political exposed and the political elite and the cronies in Ghana present challenges to tax administration because they have possible influence on it. And this influence, I'm linking it to the property tax, which somebody said that you were digitizing properties. When he started, I took my hat off, say this man is good. But immediately he finished the digitization of the properties, nothing of the equitable property tax, because it will hit the group that I have said, the political elites, the high net worth echelon, and the cronies. But in other jurisdictions, I mean, recent in UK, if you heard, the farmers who have inherited farms from their grandfathers, and now the man is telling them that if you inherit that one, you must be paying some tax. It's a farm. And then we sit here, we can't even implement a equitable property tax system so that the MDAs and the government could benefit. So I think the minister, maybe he will hire a consultant for him to look at the tax, because the word is a suboptimal and obsolete. I find it unbelievable. And the World Bank, look at this one. It said 90% of Ghana excise revenue are derived from petroleum products through energy fund and road levies. Then listen to the Starr thing. In the absence of robust tracking and tracing system, and the family gate flowing meters have contributed to low contribution and low compliance. World Bank Economic Report, June 2024.
Now, my final question to you is in relation to fiscal discipline. The finance minister, argues that despite it being an election year, they as a government have maintained fiscal discipline. This definitely deserves some commendation, doesn't it?
Well, you see, your headmaster, if you were me when I went to Prempeh College, we used to have our headmaster, Mr. T. was signed, Reverend, I've forgotten his name. When they get up, they come and stand with a stick on your head. If you misbehave in the classroom, they'll give you laps. The IMF has a counter director sitting in the Bank of Ghana, and he works with the Minister of Finance. So everything you're doing, they have to see it. That's why the discipline has come in. And even that one, I don't submit that. All the projects that have been paraded all over, these are contingent liabilities. And I want to tell Ghanaians, anything that they have done maybe 1 year or 2 years are contingent liability. It's not going to crystallize September, December. If you remember, let me quote IMF documents for you. The 2030/30. It said that contractors having been paid outstanding 35 billion. Is it not physical discipline? Energy sector, So energy sector, 2.6% of the GDP, which is 1.6, have not been settled. Is it not what we've been seeing that they're doing so and they will take a quick action and go and pay money? These are all contingent liability. Whoever takes over, the physical display on paper can show truth, but the reality is what is behind. And anybody saying it is easy, but is it that you are living the energy debt, whether you are going or you'll be there? The energy debt is an albatross. It's 1.6 billion. And the World Bank is saying that you could go 8.5 billion by the end of 2025. What strategy had the ministry and the government had put in place to address this albatross?
Doc, thank you so much for speaking to us. It's been great having you.
Thank you, Nana.
All right, then. Have a lovely day. You had to speak to financial analyst and banking consultant, Dr. Richmond Echiahene. He doesn't share in the optimism of the finance minister in relation to where the economy is at the moment. We'll also get a reaction from the finance ministry in relation to this subject in question. Going into the election, the economy is a big issue. Well, the politicians will play around with the figures and all, but ultimately, like the man on the street would say, does it reflect in my pocket? Is a Morning Star here on Star 103.5 FM.